Your nose is the first thing people notice about you, even before your smile, your eyes, or your voice. But what if someone told you that its shape isn't random? That every curve, every bump, every angle you've ever tried to hide in photos is a message from your ancestors, written in bone and cartilage. You didn't choose it. History did. Climate did. Survival did. And today, you're about to discover why your nose looks exactly the way it does. Most people think their nose shape is simply genetics. Mother's bridge, father's tip, grandmother's nostrils. But your story begins much further back. Long before photographs, long before cities, long before civilization. Your story begins when the world was divided not by borders, but by the elements. By ice, fire, desert, and storm. Humans didn't simply live in nature. Nature sculpted them. Slowly, silently, precisely. And your nose? It became nature's tool for survival. Imagine walking into freezing wind thousands of years ago, air that was sharp enough to cut your lungs. In places like Northern Europe and Siberia, breathing meant danger. The air was too cold to enter the lungs directly, so the body evolved a solution. Longer, narrower noses. A built-in heating system. Air would travel through a tighter passage, warming before reaching the lungs. The nose became a furnace, small, elegant, efficient. The colder the climate, the narrower the nostrils. Your ancestors didn't choose this design. Nature carved it into them, and into you. But travel far south, where the sun is relentless, and the deserts breathe heat. In Africa, Arabia, India, air is warm, thick, humid. Breathing is easier, but cooling the body becomes the real challenge. That's when wide noses became essential. Larger nostrils meant more airflow. More airflow meant better cooling. Better cooling meant survival. Wide, round, beautifully open nostrils were not simply features, they were life-saving architecture. A design crafted by the sun itself. And in between, where climates mixed, where humidity and temperature constantly shifted, noses evolved in hybrid forms. Neither too wide nor too narrow. Neither too sharp nor too round. Balanced, adaptable, flexible. Just like the people who lived there. But climate wasn't the only sculptor. A second force, subtle yet powerful, shaped your face through centuries. Connection. Humans began to travel, to migrate, to mix. And every time two people from different worlds came together, their story, their bloodlines, their climate histories blended. The child inherited pieces of both. The nose began to show not where you were, but everywhere you came from. Some inherited the proud Roman bridge, strong, prominent, built like a ridge of stone. Others inherited the soft button nose, small, gentle, rounded like a drop of dew. Some carried the straight, symmetrical line common across East Asia, minimalist, efficient, beautifully refined. Others inherited the striking aquiline nose, curved like an eagle's beak, a shape seen from the Mediterranean to the Middle East. None of these shapes were flaws. Every one of them had a purpose before beauty standards existed. But beauty, modern beauty, changed everything. A few centuries ago, people began judging features not by survival, but by preference. And preferences changed with time. In ancient Egypt, a straight, refined nose symbolized nobility. In ancient Greece, symmetry was worshipped. Straight noses were ideal, and sculptures were carved accordingly. In medieval Europe, a narrow nose meant delicacy and social status. In the Renaissance, artists embraced large, expressive noses as symbols of wisdom and power. Every era created its own definition of perfect, and every era changed it again. By the 1900s, magazines and film created a single global ideal. Suddenly, millions compared themselves to a standard that wasn't shaped by climate, ancestry, or evolution, but by cameras, lighting, and marketing. People began hiding features that once kept their ancestors alive. But the nose is more than a shape. It is a storyteller. A high nasal bridge tells the story of ancestors who braved bitter winters. A low, soft bridge tells the story of communities shaped by warm, humid air. A wide base speaks of adaptation to tropical climates. A narrow base speaks of cold winds and thin air. A hooked or curved nose tells the story of ancient Mediterranean traders. A button nose tells the story of equatorial families shaped by warm breezes. Every bump is a memory. Every angle is a record. Every flare of your nostrils is a signature of a world your ancestors once walked. Even the little unevenness you never liked, that could be the echo of a great-grandparent you never met. Bone remembers. Cartilage remembers. Your face remembers thousands of years, even if you don't. Science later confirmed what history always knew. The nose is one of the strongest markers of human adaptation. Modern researchers found that people whose ancestors lived in colder regions tend to have taller and narrower nasal cavities. People from warmer climates have wider nasal shapes designed for greater airflow. Over time, migration blurred these borders, but the ancestral imprint remains. When you look in the mirror, you're not just seeing yourself, you're seeing the result of humanity's journey. And then comes the part nobody talks about: emotion. You know your nose changes depending on how you feel. When you cry, it widens. When you're nervous, you breathe faster. When you're angry, your nostrils flare. This isn't an accident. Humans evolved to communicate emotion through breath and expression. The nose became a signal. A tiny movement could communicate fear, dominance, attraction, warning. Even today, without speaking a word, your nose reveals your mood. The world reads you before you speak. Throughout history, entire cultures assigned meaning to nose shapes. In ancient China, a strong nose bridge symbolized fortune and leadership. In India, the nose represented honor, so important that harming someone's nose was once considered a great insult. In the Middle East, a large, proud nose was seen as a sign of character and strength. In Europe, different nose types were depicted in art to represent personality and status. Beauty was always cultural, never universal. And then, another twist in the story: medicine. As humans evolved, their teeth, jaws, and faces changed. Agriculture softened diets, shrinking jawlines over thousands of years. The nose adapted with them. Modern humans have smaller faces than their ancestors, but the same breathing needs. That's why some people snore, struggle with airflow, or have deviated septums. Your nose is working in a smaller space than evolution originally planned. Now, look at yourself again. Look closely. Your nose is not too big, not too small, not too flat, not too pointed. It is a map, a fossil, a climate archive, an ancient storybook. Inside every contour is the memory of migration routes, survival strategies, ancient landscapes, harsh winters, burning deserts, lost civilizations, forgotten nights, and thousands of generations who lived long enough for you to exist. You might think your nose is just a shape, but it is evidence of human history written on your face. Think of the people before you, walking through snowstorms, crossing seas, wandering forests, escaping droughts, surviving famines. Think of every struggle, every adaptation their bodies made so their children could breathe easier, so you could breathe easier. Your nose is proof that they survived, proof that you come from people who endured everything nature threw at them. And now, here, you are, in a world where climate no longer shapes your face, but your face still remembers climate. Your world no longer demands survival adaptations, but your features still carry them. Your nose is a relic of a world that no longer exists, yet lives on through you. You might not love every angle of it, but it is perfect in the only way that matters. It is honest, it is earned, it is yours. When you look in the mirror again, try to see what history sees. Not a flaw, not a shape to compare, but a masterpiece crafted by continents, centuries, and survival itself.
This is why your nose looks like this. Because before identity, before beauty, before culture, there was nature. And nature always leaves a signature. Your nose is that signature. And that is a story worth remembering.